Courageous Dreaming: How Shamans Dream the World into Being, by Alberto Villoldo, PhD. Introduction. We are what we think. All that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world. Buddha. Whether we realize it or not, we are all dreaming the world into being. What we're engaging in is not the sleeping act we're so familiar with, but rather a type of dreaming we do with our eyes open. When we're unaware that we share the power to co-create reality with the universe itself, that power slips away from us, causing our dream to become a nightmare. We begin to feel we're the victims of an unknown and frightening creation, that we're unable to influence, and events seem to control and trap us. The only way to end this dreadful reality is to awaken to the fact that it too is a dream, and then recognize our ability to write a better story, one that the universe will work with us to manifest. The nature of the cosmos is such that whatever vision you have about yourself and the world will become reality. As soon as you awaken to the power you have, you begin to flex the muscles of your courage. Then you can dream bravely, letting go of your limiting beliefs and pushing past your fears. You can start to come up with a truly original dream that germinates in your soul and bears fruit in your life. Courageous dreaming allows you to create from the source, the quantum soup of the universe, where everything exists in a latent or potential state. Physicists understand that in the quantum world, nothing is real until it is observed. The distinct packets of energy known as quanta, which consist of particles of matter as well as light, are neither here nor there. In a sense, they are everywhere, in space, time, until you or I decide to take note of them. When we do so, we tease them out of the web of infinite possibilities and collapse them into an event in time and space. These energy quanta like to link up with each other once they've selected a particular form of manifestation. As soon as they manifest, reality becomes fixed. Our reality is here instead of possibly everywhere. But quantum events do not occur in the laboratory only. They also happen inside our brain, on this page, and everywhere around us, even if they're separated by millions of miles or by days or weeks. These quanta of energy remain ultimately linked. Consequently, if you interact with one, you affect the entire system that this energy is part of. When you access any part of the dream, the great matrix of creation, you can change reality and alter the entire dream, and its effects will ripple to the past and influence the future. Modern physics is describing what the ancient wisdom keepers of the Americas had long known. These shamans, known as the earth keepers, say that we're dreaming the world into being through the very act of witnessing it. Scientists believe that we're only able to do this in a very small subatomic world. Shamans understand that we also dream the larger world that we experience with our senses. Like the Australian Aborigines, the earth keepers live in an environment where the dream time has not been pushed into the domain of sleep like it has for the rest of us. They know that all of creation arises from and returns to this creative matrix. The dream time infuses all matter and energy, connecting every creature, every rock, every star, and every ray of light or bit of cosmic dust. The power to dream, then, is the power to participate in creation itself. Dreaming reality is not only an ability, but a duty, one all humans must perform with grace, so that our grandchildren will inherit a world where they can live in peace and abundance. We've actually already gone into extraordinary detail to dream our universe into being. Immediately after the Big Bang, 99.99% of all matter and antimatter in the cosmos went on to annihilate each other. The stars and galaxies that we see around us today are all that remained, a minute portion of what once was. Had the ratio of matter to space in the universe changed by even 1/1000,000%, the laws of physics that permit life to emerge would not have been possible. The Big Bang had to be so perfectly orchestrated and calculated that it produced only one part of matter in 10 to the 50th power of stardust. This is divided by 10 followed by 50 zeros, no more and no less. That this occurred purely by chance is possible only if we contemplate the existence of a very large number of universes in the cosmos, where an improbable event such as the creation of our own universe would have been plausible. What's even more baffling is the fine-tuning of the parameters of the universe that occurred on the surface of the Earth, which has maintained a perfect temperature balance between the freezing and boiling points of water for more than 1 billion years. The unlikeliness of these ratios that permit life to appear suggests the presence of an intelligent force, not a creator or a god, but a universe power, which the Earth Keepers call the dream time, or infinity. The Earth Keepers I have studied with in the Andes and the Amazon believe that we can only access the power of this force by raising our level of consciousness. When we do, we become aware that we're like a drop of water in a vast divine ocean, distinct yet immersed in something much larger than ourselves. It's only when we experience our connection to infinity that we're able to dream powerfully. In fact, it's our sense of separation from infinity that traps us in a nightmare in the first place. If this sounds like circular thinking, you're right. Which came first, the nightmare or the sense of separation from infinity? The answer is that they occur simultaneously. To end the nightmare, to reclaim your power of dreaming reality and craft something better, you need more than the recognition of how this process works. You need to have a visceral understanding of your dreaming power and experience it in every cell of your body. The intellectual comprehension of your ability to create reality mimics, but then forestalls the kind of dreaming you're capable of. If you don't get beyond mere intellectual comprehension of this concept, you'll end up lowering the bar and creating a far less glorious and beautiful experience of the world than that which you're capable of crafting. With a visceral understanding of your power to dream, you realize that you can share this experience of infinity right here, right now, and stop feeling dissociated and disconnected. It takes courage to taste infinity. According to Greek mythology, the gods swiftly punished any mortal who dared to ascend Mount Olympus and taste divine power. Yet they ultimately rewarded those who had the courage to step into their realm, such as Hercules and Psyche. Similarly, in Judeo-Christian lore, as soon as Adam and Eve disobeyed God and ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, making human beings more like God, he threw them out of the Garden of Eden, lest humankind put forth their hand and take also the tree of life and eat and live forever. Genesis 3:22. But despite this original sin of humanity, all men and women are promised a chance to dwell in heaven at the end of time. Once you experience dreaming, you realize that everything in your life is unfolding with perfect synchronicity. Events may not be working out the way you'd like them to, but within the greater scheme of things, they are happening in superlative harmony. For example, you miss the train to work on the day that terrorists strike the World Trade Center and survive, which actually happened to a student of mine. Or your child tells you that he's been accepted to the college of his choice, the same week you get the promotion you've been hoping for. If the universe seems to be conspiring against you, on the other hand, then you need to change the dream. With courageous dreaming, you discover that your problems are no longer overwhelming you or defining your life, while the difficulties you face feel very real. You always have the choice to create a heroic account about your relationship to them instead of disempowering cycle of suffering. You'll recognize that you can stop being a victim, trying to fix the world all on your own, or feeling vindictive towards those who harmed you. You'll see that your life is exactly as it should be right now, and you'll be able to let go of all the stories that keep you feeling trapped and unhappy and venting in your therapist's office. You'll begin to practice dreaming the world into being, and everything will change. The Earth Keepers believe that the world is real, but only because we've dreamed it into being. But dreaming requires an act of courage, for when we lack it, we have to settle for the world that's being created by our culture or by our genes. We feel we have to settle for the nightmare. To dream courageously, we must be willing to use our hearts. Otherwise, our dreams will stall at the level of thinking, planning, and worrying too much. Then our dream will turn into a nightmare or mere fantasy, trapping us or drifting away while we wonder, what happened? I remember one of my early trips to the Amazon. I was then a young anthropologist. Oh my goodness, sorry guys. Anthropologist investigating the healing practices of the shamans of the rainforest. And I've decided to use myself as a subject. I explained to the jungle medicine man that as a child I'd fled my country of birth because of a communist revolution. I had seen bloodshed in the streets and been terrified by gunfire in the night. Since then, I'd suffered from recurring nightmares in which armed men would force their way into my home and take away my loved ones. At the time, I was in my late 20s, yet I'd been unable to enter into a lasting relationship for fear that I'd lose the person I loved, just like in my nightmare. During one healing ceremony, the shaman explained to me that, like everyone, I can either have what I want or the reasons why I can't. You are too enamored of your story, the old man said. Until you dare to dream a different dream, all you will have is the nightmare. That evening I learned how I would craft a different story for myself, one in which I'd been tempered by adversity, and my experiences had taught me to have compassion for others who were suffering. The first step to dream, my new dream, was to create a new story in which I wasn't playing the part of the victim. I then realized that not only was I dreaming my life, but I was also dreaming the entire cosmos into being, just as it was doing with me. Although the mind resists it, the fact is that, like me, you have a choice between having the life you want or the reasons why you can't. You can luxuriate in joy and peace, or you can continually be burdened by that big black bag full of all the sorrowful incidents and accidents that happened to you in your childhood or last relationship. You can endure your wounds, or you can enjoy your glory. You can live the life of a victim burdened by the traumas of your past, or you can live the life of a hero, but you can't do both. If you want to feel empowered, you need to make a conscious decision to create a sacred dream and practice courage. Courageous dreaming happens at a state of perception that the Earth Keepers refer to as the level of the hummingbird. The hummingbird is an archetype for the heroic voyager. Just like it, you'll inevitably take some wrong turns. However, each time you return to the recognition that you are dreaming your reality, you will deepen your understanding of the journey and feel more committed to it. You'll be able to embrace the ever-shifting landscape around you with equanimity and sense of humor, and you'll even experience grace. Recognizing that you're living in a nightmare. The word dreaming conjures up the strange sequence of images that unfold in our minds when we sleep. Dreams can also be metaphors. We aspire to achieve the American dream, a dream house, a dream romance, or a dream career. We look at the problems in our world and say we dream of an end to poverty, violence, and global warming. What we mean is that we believe we're indulging in wishful thinking, describing that what we feel can never really come true. Yet neither our sleeping creations nor wishful thinking is the kind of dreaming we'll be exploring in this book. If you're like most people, your original plan for the dream life went awry somewhere. You examined what went wrong, tinkered with the plan, put aside the disappointment, and tried again, and still failed. You may be at a point where you're beginning to lose faith that you can have a fulfilling and meaningful existence, or you might feel powerless to create the destiny you want. Maybe you got distracted and forgot that you'd originally envisioned, and now you feel that you're only going through the motions of existence, unsure of your purpose. Dreaming may seem frustrating and futile. When we become caught up in the activities of everyday survival, as well as trying to fashion a life that our mind tells us ought to make us happy, we can become confused. The relationship sours, the carefree lifestyle vanishes, and the bills pile up. Or we look around at all the symbols of success that we've acquired and wonder why they don't make us happy. Our formula for bliss turns out to be a recipe for banality at best and suffering at worst, and our dream becomes a nightmare. Much as we like to think of ourselves as leading bold and original lives, we tend to lose our zest for adventure at an early age as we begin conforming to our culture's expectations of how we ought to think, feel, and act. We've been educated into a cultural nightmare that promotes apathy instead of courage, and conformity instead of originality. We don't feel a sense of fulfillment or purpose, but we dare not admit that our lives aren't working for us. It can be so scary to even think about paying the consequences for going up against the status quo that we might stay right where we are, afraid to rock the boat. Such was the case when I was at San Francisco State University. At that time, I was one of the youngest clinical professors in the state university system. I also directed my own lab, the Biological Self-Regulation Laboratory. One day, it occurred to me that perhaps I was looking out of the wrong end of the microscope, that instead of going smaller and smaller to understand the mind, I had to go bigger, to the point that I considered a paradigm whose rules about time and space were vastly different from the one I'd been trained in. That was when I heard a faint call to leave the lab and travel to the Amazon, where I could study the shamans who relied entirely on the power of the mind to create what I was then calling psychosomatic health. All of my friends thought I was mad, that I was throwing away a promising career for a wild adventure in the jungle. The only one happy to see me go was the dean, who believed that all consciousness research was a waste of time and money. I remember how ashamed I felt and how disappointed my family was that I was leaving a respectable job at the university and becoming an explorer. Even many years later, when I was in my 40s and had authored half a dozen books and lectured at universities worldwide, my mother asked me when I was going to get a real job at a university, a position that she felt was prestigious in contrast to the work I was doing. Recalling how we've been shamed in the past for being different makes us so uncomfortable that we project that shame onto others, each other, and subscribe to a collective nightmare of powerlessness and fear. We're suspicious of anyone who thinks, feels, and acts differently from everyone else, and we're secretly jealous of them too. Caught up in this nightmare, we stop taking risks and become clinical. Our trust in others erodes, and we insist that we can look out for ourselves without help from anyone. We'd like to believe that we're living our lives creatively, that we're iconoclastic and fascinating. But we came up with the mundane rebellions, such as driving a flashy red car rather than a neutral-colored one, or wearing a Hawaiian shirt to work instead of a suit. Unfortunately, our creative acts have become empty symbols, and life has become a parody of a television soap opera, with people playing stereotyped roles and acting out tired old scripts. Lack of originality and courage are the hallmarks of our collective nightmare. Since all of us have a fundamental need for the sense of security that familiarity provides, we long to fit in and take comfort in believing that tomorrow will be just like today. In fact, psychologist Abraham Maslow, who identified a hierarchy of human needs, found that men and women place the need for security above the one for love. Change causes us to face the unknown and reside in the realm of unfamiliarity, so we avoid it. Before taking a step out the door, we want plenty of reassurance that we won't experience any discomfort and that our path will be clear at all times and lead us straight to our goal. Any uncertainty is enough to make us close the door completely. It seems less painful to stick to what's familiar, even if we're continually grumbling and complaining about how awful it is. Admitting that what we're doing isn't producing the results we'd like takes courage. While I was at my lab at the university, I could have continued receiving research grants to perform studies that I knew wouldn't be significant. I tried to convince myself that since I was getting funding from respected foundations, I was doing something that made a difference. When I decided to travel to the Amazon, not one of my sponsors was willing to back my work, and the only colleague who supported me was my professor, Dr. Stanley Krippner. Once I realized that I'd been lying to myself about the importance of my academic career, I had to let go of my pattern of responding to my discomfort by doing the same thing I'd always done, only with a surge of recommitment. I had to stop hoping that if I tried hard enough, I'd find a way to do work that had some meaning and still have the blessing of a major university. The United States has always embraced the metaphor of being born again to passion and commitment. American bookstores are filled with the memoirs about athletes and movie stars who kicked their drug habits, poor men and women who became extraordinarily wealthy, and fat and unhappy people who transformed themselves into thin and happy people. But no matter how much enthusiasm we have for reinvention, unless we let go of the dreams and wishful thinking that got us into the nightmare in the first place, we'll keep recreating it in some form or another. We think we're being reborn, but before long we discover that we're still rolling the boulder up the hill, like Sisyphus, getting nowhere. The ex who drove us crazy is gone, but our new partner is just as exasperating. Or that career change we've been praying for landed us in yet another job dominated by office politics. No wonder we feel so powerless. We want world peace, or at least peace in our lives, but we can't have a conversation with our former romantic partner or current co-worker without becoming furious. You can stop engaging in futile efforts and feeling stuck in a nightmare, but to do so, you must make a radical shift in how you perceive reality. No self-help course will help you with this, and understanding what you ought to do isn't enough. You have to reclaim your power to dream boldly and courageously, conscious of your journey through infinity. Only then can you easily and naturally let go of the fear that keeps you bogged down in your personal nightmares. Dreaming a life of purpose and meaning. While we've been told that creating material security will make us feel good, even those who achieve success according to our culture's standards are often shocked by how empty our triumphs are. Some of my clients are multimillionaires whose wealth most people would envy, but many don't enjoy any sense of purpose or happiness at all. All some of them can think about is how awful it would be if they were to lose what they've accumulated, which is often the reason they come to see me in the first place. They want to heal from the curse placed on them by society, the mandate to attain and accumulate. They want to discover how to have a life rich with meaning and purpose instead. Other clients who haven't reached their goals tend to focus on the future, saying, I'm going to change my life and make the world a better place. Just as soon as my kids are grown, I fully fund my retirement plan. I get a less stressful job. They're waiting for all their distractions to move out of the way so that they can take advantage of their big chance to prove how bold and original they can be. But in the present, they're in the middle of a collective nightmare that's uninspired, unoriginal, and unsustainable. One that's making them feel as if they're slowly dying. Many of us are like the frog stuck in a pot of water that's slowly boiling in this oft-old story. The creature feels the water growing increasingly warmer, but instead of saying to himself, I'd better jump out before it gets too hot and I really suffer, he keeps adjusting to the temperature. Eventually, the poor thing is boiled to death. Right now, the water is beginning to simmer around us. We need to stop hoping that things will get better someday and just jump. All too often in our panic, we reach out for a quick fix that requires minimal effort, and we talk ourselves into believing that we found a shortcut to happiness. We send our child to a new school thinking that that will solve all the problems she was having in the old one, only to find that she's just as unhappy as she was before. On a collective level, we scramble for the same types of solutions. In the past several years, Ecuador has lost 40% of its rainforest due to drilling for oil to feed the insatiable American appetite for fossil fuels. Yet they only ended up harvesting enough oil to fuel the United States for 2 weeks. It's clear that quick fixes can be painfully expensive and futile, and they land us right back in the pot of boiling water. We still have the same problems of limited fossil fuels, economies dependent on them, and global warming. One reason why we scramble to find fast solutions instead of accessing our courage and dreaming something new is because we falsely believe that courage requires sacrifice. Yes, it's actually cowardice that requires the greatest sacrifice, that our convictions, principles, dreams, and hopes, that of our convictions, principles, dreams, and hopes. Panicking and trying to create material security never works for long, and the cost is very high. Giving up what we most value causes much worse suffering than relinquishing someone else's approval or some of our own material comfort. It's far better to forget about quick fixes and learn to access the courage to dream. The courage of the soul. The word courage derives from the Latin word cor, meaning heart or soul. Courage of the soul goes beyond mere bravery. When we're brave, we take risks in order to meet our survival needs. The tales of military heroes who fight to the end despite the enemy's overwhelming numbers are extraordinary, but they're driven by the urge to survive. With the courage of the soul, we don't focus only on self-preservation, security, or safety. In fact, such courage compels us to risk our comfort and safety, and sometimes even our lives, as we act accordingly to our most deeply held values. This kind of valor comes from a higher source, and is necessary as an ingredient for us to create a different dream. Your dream may be one of peace or adventure, parenting or teaching, nurturing or healing. And although a dream is not formulated in words but is steeped in vision, instinct, and feelings, much like your sleeping dreams are, it can be described in words. Here are a few examples. I want to fully savor the life I have and enjoy my children being present at work, when I'm in the office, and present with my family when I'm at home. Or I want to live adventurously, exploring my options, listening to my heart. Or I want to make a difference in the world in whatever may spirit guides me. Unlike longings, hopes, or even concrete goals, these affirmations can manifest in every moment when you hold them in your heart. Then you naturally and easily behave in accordance with your dream, accessing the tremendous power of courage. When you're dreaming courageously, you're experiencing a higher level of awareness and caring. But you're not blissed out like a monk on a mountaintop, nor are you stuck merely trying to survive. You're present in your experience, not focused on the past or the future. So if you're bagging up the recycling to take to the curb, for instance, you're simultaneously aware that you're participating in the care and nurturing of the planet. If you're waiting in line to get your driver's license, you accept being told that you didn't fill out the form properly. You don't start writing a story in your mind about your hellish afternoon, dealing with bureaucracy. Said another way, you can recognize your connection to others and perceive that you aren't the only one who matters, and you genuinely care about the good of all of the Earth's creatures. You care about the clerk behind the window and the nervous teenager waiting to take his behind the wheel test. You recognize that your fear doesn't justify inflicting it on anyone else, and your frustration doesn't justify taking it out on anyone else. Courage of the soul takes us beyond petty human emotions and lets us live authentically, speaking our truth and breaking the rules, even when it's embarrassing or uncomfortable to do so. It allows us to take a stand in the small moments instead of waiting for our grand slam opportunity to prove our mettle, our Rosa Parks moment of greatness. Actually, not even Rosa Parks herself waited for her moment of greatness. By the time she refused to give up her seat on the Montgomery, Alabama bus to a white person in 1955, she'd already been involved in the struggle for civil rights for years, and she'd been an NAACP secretary and youth leader of the local branch. She'd stood up to the bus drivers before, but had never been arrested for her actions. She was already living according to her values and supporting others who were living according to theirs. She remained seated, breaking the law, not because she was particularly tired that day or because she suddenly and serendipitously found a wellspring of courage that had been hidden until that magic moment. She simply lived her life in alignment with her deepest values and purposes. So when she needed courage, it was there. Acting out of integrity did not take enormous effort or willpower, for it was already her established habit. Until the day Mrs. Park died, she maintained that she was uncomfortable with being credited with starting the Montgomery bus boycott. She understood that it just as easily could have been started by another person who, like she, was living a life of integrity and courage, and who would have done the same thing she had done under the circumstances. Yet this story has been rewritten to feature a brave iconolist who instantaneously assessed the vein of courage that had been buried until that key moment, thus launching a revolution. As if the story wasn't inspiring enough. Iconoclast. Waiting for your grand Rosa Parks moment is disempowering because it keeps you from developing the habit of living courageously in each small moment. Like Mrs. Parks, however, you can develop the habit of dreaming courageously, of choosing to create a new and better reality right now instead of waiting for your life to get better. This book and exercises herein will help you access the strength to act, to clean up the mess in the river of your life, and to stop reliving and retelling the same stories of victimhood and powerlessness. You can decide to risk your comfort rather than deny your most deeply held principles. You can be honest with yourself and others, love without fear, and heal yourself and your relationships. You can stop hiding from the painful truth that you aren't always living up to your ideals. You can laugh at yourself, find beauty in any moment or situation, and become the changes you'd like to see in the world. Then you can achieve the goal of being ready to die at any instant, an attitude that allows you to stop being afraid and instead appreciate life and the precious time you have to experience it. Once you're no longer trapped in the nightmare, you can begin the process of dreaming and watch as the universe mirrors back the change in yourself by altering the circumstances around you. But while you'll no longer need to make a Herculean effort to try to create happiness and fulfillment in your life, you will have to say yes to every opportunity for living courageously. The moment you find yourself beginning to tell a lie, to protect your ego, scripting a story of victimhood, or giving up your proverbial seat on the bus and muttering, well, maybe next time, you need to awaken to your power to dream and let a surging stream of soul courage rush in. When you dream courageously, the effects aren't always immediately visible in the physical world. The most dramatic changes will occur inside of you, quietly, as you make the choice to reject the unreasonable expectations of your culture, family, neighborhood, and church. Let go of the need to be accepted, liked, or admired, and admit that you may feel unsafe, insecure, or unsuccessful. You draw upon the courage of the soul when you choose to look at things differently and create a different type of life for yourself. When you do that, the circumstances of your immediate environment will begin to transform. None of us will ever reach a permanent state of alignment, enlightenment, and be able to take off our shoes, put up our feet, and know for certain that we're free of all of our issues and at peace with our situation at all times. Inevitably, the very moment we begin to feel that way, the universe will provide us with the perfect opportunity to realize how ridiculous and arrogant we're being. For this reason, we must make a start towards dreaming the world we say we want to exist in and the lives we say we want to lead. First, we have to recognize just how paralyzing it is to live in the nightmare we've scripted for ourselves, as well as how we've colluded in the cultural nightmare that we share. So let's turn the page on this project and begin. Thanks for joining me.